We are now live. Exciting. It's exciting. So happy.
First time in a while for me.
Well, it's nice to have you back live on YouTube.
Thanks, buddy.
And now I'm going to record this for our podcast friends. And then we'll get going. And welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 334, live on YouTube. I'm your host, Blaine Pudvey, and I'm joined now by my co-host, Matt Bedard, aka Scotian Canadian. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, buddy? Long time no see.
It's been way too long.
Yeah. Big win tonight. Are we allowed to celebrate? Are we allowed? Like, should we be happy, or are people going to be mad?
I think both. People will be both.
Okay, it's Tampa, right? Like,
yeah,
I'd say that's. I'm taking it. Woo! Felt good to do that, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's been way too long since they've had a win against Tampa at home. I think the last time Vasilevsky lost a game in Montreal was in 2016.
Man, that's a stat. That's brutal. I believe it. He's a beast. He's a beast, and it's not. I mean, it's nice to get the rebound win after getting stomped by them the other day. So we'll take it. I know, a lot of people want to lose. A lot of people want to up those chances for Connor Bedard, and I mean, I absolutely do too. I mean, who would say no to a kid like that, right? Like,
everybody wants a Bedard on their team.
Yeah, absolutely. But the reality is, this is a professional club, and they gotta put together a culture. They gotta, put some effort in and try and get the wins every night. And sometimes they're gonna get them with the young talent that they have, and with Jonathan Drouin getting a little redemption tonight.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, they've only won 2 games in the month of March so far. So, I mean,
yeah.
And what has that gotten them? They're the bottom 5. They got a 10% chance. So let's say they get completely shelled for the rest of the season, and somehow they finish dead last. So instead of 10%, now it's 25%. There's still not much, but it's not a huge possibility.
Yeah, I mean, what is meant to be will be. And I like to think I'm not superstitious, but I am. And if I was sitting here, give us Connor Bedard, give us that loss, give us that extra 0.5%. In my head, the way my head spins and works, that would jinx it. So I gotta just, step back, just let it play out, and enjoy the odd win when we can get him in a season like this, because it sucks, But everyone wants Bedard. Who would say no to that? That'd be like a hot chick coming up to you you're on the beach enjoying a nice hot day, just clear day. Hot chick comes up to you. Would you like a strawberry shortcake made with local strawberries and fresh whipped ice cream? And you're just like, fuck no, get out of here. Of course you want that, right? Everybody wants them, but take the wins when you can get them.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a lot of them. It's not like there's a lot of wins either.
No.
Enjoy them when they happen, especially at home against a powerhouse team like that.
Yeah. Absolutely a rival. And look who it is. Is he going?
We got special guests. Oh, Treg is coming in hot.
I haven't talked to Treg in a while either.
And there he is.
Good day.
Bienvenue.
Good day.
Welcome.
Oh, I'm just excited about my huge race coming.
Yeah, I'm wondering, where are you going to spend that extra $8 a month?
Well, I've lived in the same place for 7 years, so I'm not even going to get anything. So anyway, not for this show.
Nope. We don't want to say anything bad about the King.
Sure.
Back to hockey, though. So Matt and I were just talking about Drew Wayne's redemption and the Canadians finally winning a goddamn game at home.
Are you happy or are you sad?
I don't care if they win or lose. Like I said, they're going to finish around 6th or 7th. It looks like they'll probably finish 5th.
So you were wrong,
I guess, but it doesn't change the fact that I knew this team was better than what everyone thought they're going to be a bottom 3 team. I said they're not a bottom 5, they're a bottom 10. They still could be a 6th or 7th. But like, let's be realistic here. Like this team under Martin St. Louis, if it wasn't for the 8-game losing streak at the end of the season, would have been a 500 team. And they actually got better this year. Montembeault became a better goalie. He was no longer a AHL backup like he was last year, and he's looking like he could legitimately be maybe a temporary starter for the team going forward. And but everyone was like, no, this team sucks. Look at their defensive core. Well, the defensive core, I'm saying now, if the team were to stay healthy all year, they probably would have been in the top 15. I don't think they would have made the playoffs, but they would have been around 12 to 14, I would say, if they stayed healthy all year. They'd be battling Florida for the next spot out of the playoffs, which I think would be terrible either way. But
it's worked out how it should have. It's worked out, not maybe how it should have, but it's everything that has meant to happen has happened. They needed another, top 5 pick or top 10 pick, and that's what they're going to get. So you don't want to enter a season, let's fucking lose, boys. Let's get the L's every night. But they put in the effort, and then the injuries piled up, and it just didn't work out for them. And otherwise it would have been likely pushing for a spot and a lot of incredibly frustrating losses, and then falling short and being pissed off that we're drafting in the middle.
Well, I mean, a lot of people who argue that they need to tank to lose don't realize that people playing the game don't purposely lose. Nobody purposely loses. And the biggest complaint I hate is goalies are stealing games. Well, a goalie's there to win a game. They don't just get nets and say, well, I really want to get Bedard on the team, so I'm just going to let a few in and do this. I'm a goalie. They don't do that. They don't. Even when they're letting 6-7 goals in, like the other night, they're pissed. You know what I mean? Like, and you have guys that are fighting for a career. Like, come on. Like, let's use some common sense in this. Management tanks. And I think Hughes and them have done everything they could to put together an okay, a team that's not going to contend for. He just said in The Athletic with LeBron, this team's not going to contend for 2 to 3 years. They did that. They put together that. I mean, they're harnessed with these huge contracts with some players that they don't want. But I mean, they didn't rush out and get a goalie to replace Price. They didn't go, oh, we don't have Price, we better get another number 1 goalie. They didn't do that. They didn't try to replace anyone. The whole defensive core, they could have went out and said, hey, we need defensemen. Let's grab this guy and that guy. Instead, they went, you know what? We got rookies. Let's go with these guys. See what they can do.
Well, you look at this season and compare it to last season. Last season, the team was really bad. They finished dead last. The team's not that much better in the standings, but it's night and day difference watching the games. How many people were depressed watching Habs games last year? Now, this year, they're losing almost as many, but at least they're fun to watch.
Well, they're in games, they're back and forth. There's been some barn burners, last year it was like, 5 minutes into the first and it's already 2-0, and you just know how it's going to play out. It's going to be 4-0. Then they'll score a goal late in the third and they're going to lose 4-1 or 6-2 or some bullshit. This year, you don't know what you're getting into each game. And the roster seems to have changed every single night or two because of the injuries. We just get Gallagher and Doc back, and Anderson is now going to be gone. So it's unbelievable, the injury luck. And maybe I know the the medics and the doctors are taking slack, but it's been a weird season, and but somehow they're still upbeat and making plays out there and having fun. Somehow there was a little dip for probably 2 or 3 weeks in the middle of the season when it started to get a little mundane. The guys were getting frustrated, and that was when I was like, okay, is Marty going to be able to turn this around? And he did, and then they somehow got their wits back to them, and we're back in some games again. But like, I totally agree with Treg there. Like, all the there's a difference between what the reality is and what fans are going to want. Like, I was telling Blaine before he popped in, like, everyone wants Connor Bedard. If we end up bottom 5 or somehow in bottom 3, whatever, and get a nice percentage to get him, who's not going to be happy about that at the end? But the reality is that it's a professional hockey club, in the top tier, the highest tier you can get, and of a team that has one of the best legacies in sports. They're not rolling over ever. Doesn't matter what the situation is, this, and especially when you're trying to build a culture that's going to take off here. And there's a difference between Hughes saying, oh, we're not going to contend for 2 to 3 years, and I don't think they're rolling over and saying we're not going to at least try to make the playoffs each and every year going forward. Whether or not, like, they're not turning the faucet in terms of we're going to start buying and surrounding these guys with pieces to push once we get in there, but they're not rolling over next season either. It might be what should have happened this year happens next year, maybe a tad bit better. Like, they're fighting for a wild card next year and just miss out or just get in or whatever, right?
It's going to be organic. It's not going to be this forced, we're going to get rid of all the good players so we can suck real bad. They're organically allowing the team to finish where they finish as they shed contracts that they don't want.
Well, it's like Bergevin signed a lot of big contracts. You have Armia, Savard, Edmondson, Gallagher, which I think is going to be an albatross down the road. Like, I love Gallagher. Everyone loves Gallagher, but he's not a $6.5 million hockey player. So
love him when he plays.
If you look at the next 2 or 3 years, though, all those salaries are going to be disappearing. Huffman, Edmondson, Savard, Armia. In the next 2 or 3 years, they're all going to melt away. I mean, you're still going to have Gallagher, but that whatever. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you have a leader. Okay, he's getting $6.5 million to be a leader. I can live with that. And as those contracts go away, that's when they'll start replacing. That's when they'll start. Okay, and it's going to depend on what they draft. If they win the lottery and get Bedard, okay, well, now we got to start. You know what I mean? We got that skilled elite player now, which they do need. They do need a top elite player because, but you can also get that with Fantelli or Carlson or Michkov, who will be around in 3 to 4 years, right? And if they don't want to contend for another 3 to 4 years, Michkov may not be a bad. So if they pick top 5, they're not going to lose out. Like, I took heat on Twitter for saying Canadians do not need Bedard, and it's a fact. No team needs a player, right? They want the player. The player is going to greatly increase or accelerate their plans. However, if you're going to put all your baskets in on one player, then your management's terrible, right? And you're basically saying, as a fan or as someone who follows that, I do not trust my management. They better get this guy or we're screwed. And that's what a lot of people are saying. A lot of people saying, if we don't get A, B, or C, we're going to suck for the next 10 years.
Absolutely not. I mean, and that Habs in the situation that they're in, that couldn't be further from the truth. I still think that, and the results in the standings helps this narrative move forward, even though it's not true that they're this awful team that needs this huge rebuild. The young talent with elite level potential on this team, all in the same age range with more coming, is insane. It's insane. Doc, Caulfield, Suzuki, and then on the back end, Gooley, Barron, Jack. Like, it's just, these guys are all going to grow together. With all these, like Treg mentioned, the contracts are coming out, they're going out the door. So that's going to open up money. So it's likely that a lot of these guys are going to be playing together for the next 6-7 years. You know, they're going to be good. They're going to be good. It's just been a strange season. They're still growing. They're still, and yeah. So I'm excited for the rebuild and where it's at right now. I think we've been Hughes took over at a great time with came in and had a lot of assets, but also a lot of troubled contracts to get away from, which will take time. There's no need to rush it, especially when it's strong veterans who've been putting in their time that are having an impact on these kids that are growing. It's going to happen organically, and it's going to happen, sooner rather than later. 2 to 3 years to contend isn't that long. Like he said, that's not long.
No, and when you think about it, not really. They still in this draft here, even if they get top 5, my guess is if they're in 5 or 6, they'll probably end up going for someone like Reinbacher, that right-handed defenseman, a puck mover, big kid. He is tearing up the Swiss League right now. And when he was here in Halifax at the World Juniors, the guy was playing on an IV drip without any solid foods for the whole tournament. He was sick, and he was still putting up good numbers, and he was competitive against teams like Canada.
Blaine, you cannot say they're going to draft Reinbacher. You just screwed the team. You just screwed the team. Have you not been listening to Twitter?
No, because I have a life.
You have to get player A, B, or C, or else it's a total.
It's over. Throw in the towel.
It's over.
Yeah,
it's over.
Well, I've got it on pretty good authority that they're looking at guys like Dvorsky and Reinbacher, and those are the types of players they're looking at. I don't think Michkov is going to be the guy they pick.
I think Michkov's going to drop to closer to 10 to 12 than anywhere else. However, I'm not a huge fan of Dvorsky. There's nothing I've seen, and I've watched some highlights and stuff like that. So I'm not just saying I've seen a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
I prefer Leo Carlson.
I prefer Leo Carlson, but I think he's going to go top 3 or 4. So
I'd say 3.
Yeah. If Michkov doesn't get picked in 3, he's going 3. So I like guys like Zach Benson or Will Smith, or you know what I mean? If they're picking 5, 6, I'd rather than pick around there. I'm not against Reinbacher.
Barlow?
Maybe. That's another guy that if you pick him, you just screwed the draft. You screwed the draft, Blaine. I know. I'm on Twitter all the time, and I know things.
I shouldn't have picked that 50 goal scorer. I know. Sorry, guys.
But I mean, again, you have a bunch of fans who are freaking out about stuff that hasn't happened yet. And then they're freaking out about a draft pick that they have no idea how they're going to do in the NHL. So, I mean, you can go Bedard. You can sit there and say he's the next greatest thing, or he's the next Alexander Dag. I don't think he's going to be the next Alexander Dag. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going to be McDavid either.
Yeah.
I think he'll be an elite star.
Yeah.
Canadians need an elite player because I don't really think they have one. I think they have high level players, but no elite player.
Yeah, they don't have that generational or even that next tier down. Yeah. They don't have that.
Caulfield
guy.
Hello?
Caulfield might be on the cusp, I think, maybe.
Maybe.
Like, I don't think Suzuki is a Suzuki on a contending team is not a first line center. Suzuki's this era's Saku Koivu, if that makes any sense to anyone.
I'd say Plekanec.
Yeah, he's great. He's going to be a great center. He's going to be a good first line center for what we have. But in the end, if you can get a better center, you go and get him.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would even argue maybe Kirby Dach ends up being that better center.
Speaking of Kirby Dach,
he's talented, man.
He just played a hell of a game. He played over 20 minutes. He dominated puck possession. He scored the early goal. He did not look like he missed 5 or 6 weeks of hockey.
He's a unit. He's a tank. And he's good everywhere. He's a really, really good player. Versatile. That was a shocker. I couldn't believe that when it happened. Right away, it was top, number 4 shutdown guy, defenseman, swap him for a first and you end up with a, potential top 6 center out of it. And we're already seeing that turn around real quick, I like just how they got like, I understand he had his injury and he struggled in Chicago a bit, but to get a number 3 overall pick for Romanov, who, albeit, impressed a lot and has a good resume as a middle defenseman who's vicious, to get a Kirby Doc for that. That's amazing. And I love Romanov, but take that and run.
Especially when moving Romanov opens up space for Goalie to play.
Yeah, and Jack Eye, yeah.
And Jack Eye.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you ask me, Jack Eye's the Romanov replacement, only he can fight. Not that Romanov couldn't fight, but Jack Eye's
he can also shoot.
He can shoot, he can skate,
Yeah.
he can dance on that blue line. He can how this guy didn't get drafted at any level is beyond me. It's beyond me. I have no idea. But that just goes to show what hard work and determination gets someone. He was told this is what he had to work on, and that's what he worked on, and then he just kept improving.
Yeah, got huge, got swole naturally somehow.
And your Drouin thing, I was glad Drouin scored a goal. I thought he played a great game, and I loved the way he handled the entire situation. He didn't throw any blame at anyone. He said, I was late. This is why I was late. And Martin St. Louis had to do what he had to do. And he was only in the lineup, by the way, because what's his face was a late scratch. That Goalie was a late scratch, the defenseman. So they only put him in there so they can have their 21 players or whatever.
Yeah, that whole thing played out really, really well. And I would say it's unlikely, but I don't know. It just seems like Marty and Drouin are developing this kind of interesting relationship. Like to go through something like that where Marty has to put the fist down. The first time he really kind of had to since he's been coach, and it sends a message to the whole team. That's not, I know Drouin struggled here and there, but he's been out here and there. He's playing well as of late. He's a veteran of sorts, he's in his late 20s now, mid to late 20s. That sends a message to the young players on the team that this is serious. And then Drouin goes and then does a favor to St. Louis and also just is a pro and handles it professionally, shows the kids, shows the room how you handle something, even if you fuck up. So that the way that whole thing played, and then he scores tonight, beautiful goal, beautiful shot. Was it Gurianov made the pass? Like the way the whole thing played out was perfect. And despite being in Montreal, when they could, the media can be looking for something to just tear this team down, everyone handled it like very, very well. Especially, so maybe does he come back? Probably not, but you never know.
Especially with Drouin, who everyone goes on has an attitude. He's a piss poor attitude. He's this, he's that, he's this. And I've never seen that in Drouin. Like Blaine and I have been supporters of Drouin from day one. My biggest thing was I thought Bergevin made the expectations for him way too high. And when he didn't meet it, people rioted. And like Blaine and I both agree the entire time, he's not the player everyone thinks he's going to be. It doesn't help that Sergachev has gone on to be a fairly good top 4 defenseman. He's not a Norris guy or anything, and he's also playing on a high-powered hockey team. And I'm not taking anything away from Sergachev. He's a good hockey player. But Drouin was put in an awful position right from the start. Like he literally had to have 80 to 90 point seasons just to appease everyone. Like if he would have had a 60, 65, no one would be happy. But he did what he did, and he is what he is. And I thought he handled the whole situation with it. He's the highest scoring Canadian since January. So he leads the entire team in points since January. So, and that goes to say, like what you said about Martin St. Louis, he had to do something. And he says, all right, Drouin was going to sit out the game. But then again, when Goalie got put out, he had to put him in. And then he said, you know what? You're just not playing. And I'm not changing what I'm doing. You just have to sit on the bench. And Drouin took it like a pro. He was like, all right, whatever. I'll just sit here. You want some water? You okay?
Yeah, I could see him going to a kind of a low-key market and, putting up quite a few apples, helping out someone's power play, being a depth scoring piece for a really good team. Like he's putting up quite a few points now because he's getting a ton of minutes because to play. Is he a guy that's on a really good team that can play on both sides of the puck and still put up points? Maybe not, but he can, he can go somewhere and put up some points on a second power play unit and some depth scoring and whatnot. I don't know. It's a bittersweet ending for Drew. It didn't play out how it should have, but he's done a lot for the community. And, I agree. I haven't seen any of the piss poor attitude stuff. And it seemed like, the excuse that was used or the reason for this whole situation in the first place, he just slept in and was 2 minutes late. It seemed genuine, right? It seemed like an honest mistake that hadn't happened before. And the team was just not gonna allow it to slide, which I thought is fair sign of good organized.
Setting the example, using him, just even being 2 minutes late, letting everybody know this is how things are going to roll in my dressing room. So St. Louis saying, here's the line, don't cross the line. It's one of these non-negotiable points. And then he set that standard. If he would have let that slide, that could have hurt in the long run. But now he understands, because St. Louis understands you have to control that room, keep it within a certain boundary. Now with Drouin, I'm going to call it now. This summer, I fully expect him to walk away at free agency and sign probably on the 5th or 6th of July with either Arizona, Anaheim, Columbus, one of those teams near the bottom, for a really cheap deal on a 1-year term. Play his heart out through the year, put up a ton of points, and then they flip him for something decent at the deadline to a contending team. That's my call right now.
Yeah.
And then he pulls a cadre and wins a cup.
Well, he has played the game 7 before, so he knows how to do it. But now, on the game itself, we should talk about the game a little bit. There was a couple of interesting points to that game. The Pezzetta having to defend a clean hit. This bullshit of having to defend clean hits is getting fucking old. Pezzetta knocks Perry off his feet with a perfectly clean legal hit. And then Maroon comes slowly into the scrum, or as fast as he can, depends how you look at it, and then tries to make him fight for it. I think Maroon's just jealous of Pezzetta's hair.
Well, the same thing happened again to Romanov last night with the Islanders.
Yes.
Perfectly good, clean hit, and then he had some guy jumped him. And now, devil's advocate will say, speed of the game, players don't always know whether it's a clean hit or not, so they're defending their player if they get put to the ice. So here's my theory on that. If the player goes to the ice but doesn't look hurt, what are you defending? First of all. Second of all, you can so tell a dirty hit from a clean hit because the guy's head whips back 90% of the time on a fucking dirty hit, right? But when a guy got his elbow tucked in, bent down like this, and lays a hit, the only way that's a dirty hit is if the other guy got his head down. So, yeah, I think it's just the instigator rule was put in for a reason. And that is exactly what it should be used on. Right
but
then
they
and there.
didn't use it.
They never use it. Ever.
Nope. So why haven't?
Yeah. Can't hear you talking there, Matt.
Yeah, they never they never use it. They and if you start using it, that'll make guys think about actually not just assuming it's dirty right away. Like though, you'll hear maybe they didn't see the hit, they turn around, their teammates down, they don't know, so they just immediately react. That might eliminate the immediate reaction if you're going to just take a 2 minute and put your team down. They should be using it. That's the perfect spot to use that. If it's a clean hit, the ref should see the clean hit and go, he shouldn't be jumping him right now. So
he's instigating a fight, instigator penalty. There you go. End of conversation. But the refs don't do that. They're just like, oh.
And that penalty in and of itself would be enough of a deterrent to keep fights to a minimum, which in turn is what certain leagues in junior hockey want. Instead of a complete ban, just use the damn rules that are in place.
Well, I mean, I'm not against fights. I'm old school. I don't mind the fights. However, in the old school ways, if you think about it, whether the hit was clean or dirty, you didn't jump the guy right away anyway. You took his number and he went, all right, I'm going to get you later on in the game, right? And that's how it was. And by get you, I meant they either gave them a big hit or they said, all right, I seen the replay of that hit. It was a dirty hit. You're going down. But now it's just everything's reactionary. As soon as someone gets hit and it's a nice, good looking hit, oh, it's almost like you just embarrassed him. I'm going to go beat you up now. And yeah, so it all goes back to what Matt and I were saying. That's the perfect spot to have for the instigator rule. And with the Q now saying they want to ban fighting altogether, which I think is totally wrong. Because there's a lot of kids who don't have all that finesse, but they do have toughness and grit. That's going to deter them from actually getting on a team, if you ask me.
That's how you get another Jack guy too, because he couldn't really fight, I don't think, in junior. And then as soon as he gets into the pros, he's beating the shit out of people.
Oh, he was a big fighter in Hamilton. He was
was he?
Yeah.
I went looking for his fights and I could find like 2 or 3 a year.
Yeah, he had a couple where he knocked guys out and then he started doing this as he's skating away. So he got suspended for that. But yeah, I agree with Blaine. I agree. You use the instigator rule, or you use the. Doesn't junior have this? If you fight in the third period, you're gone for the next game, or something like that, or is that the younger
last 5 minutes or something?
Yeah. So just start doing that. Like if you fight in the game, you're out. You get into a fight, you're gone for the rest of the game. If it's the third period, you can't play the next game or whatever. Right? Don't completely get rid of it, but make it more of a deterrent to want to go out and do it.
And fighting is supposed to be a deterrent against players pulling dirty plays. You know, this is a self-policing mechanism. So something that we saw with Sergachev and Anderson at the end of this game, that, although I don't think it's really overall dirty or greasy, it was just kind of a battle, and Sergachev went over the line a little bit, but that deserves more a fight more so than a clean friggin' hit.
That deserved a penalty, but anyway.
Yeah. So Anderson's down. The word is out of breaking news is right now that he's expected to be out for the rest of the year, but Gooley for sure is out for the rest of the year. His season is done.
Unbelievable, eh? Unbelievable the injuries that keep happening to key players. And that one with Anderson, 20 seconds left in the game. I guess we should have traded him at the deadline.
How are we going to trade him in the offseason now? What the hell? We're never getting PLD. We are never getting Dubois.
Yeah.
Couldn't trade Monahan.
Brutal though. It's brutal. And that that was a big one. I was expecting a first round pick for Monahan. But it's too bad. The knee too. It looked like that looked bad. And that could potentially be barely ready for training camp injury for all we know, like that's just fucking shitty. Rolling too, first 20-goal season, official 20-goal season in a while, right? He finally hit the mark. He was on pace for it every year the last few years, but this year he actually hit it. It's his consistent level, but go figure, boom, down with a fucking knee injury, 20 seconds left.
He was on pace for 25 goals. I guess I'd say to shut the season down for the Canadians this year. Let's just, shut her down. Shut her go.
Shut the lights off.
Going back to the game, I will say this: Montembeault is winning me over every game he plays. This is technically it's his third start in a row, because he started both Tampa games and the Florida game. Is it his fourth?
It's his fourth start. Yeah.
Okay. Because he technically started the Florida game and then left, but when he came back in the Florida game, he played really well.
Made the most saves of that game out of any of the 27 goalies who played.
7-2 after the first. That was fucking crazy.
7-3.
7-3. My
Yeah,
God.
10 goals, tied the record for most goals in a first period, and second
Jeez.
for most goals in one period. 12, I think, is the record. I think it was done in the second period. But so yeah, Montembeau, like I will admit, last year I hated Montembeau. I thought he was a terrible goalie, and I was like, this guy is terrible. I hope he never plays for the Canadians again. But this year it's a totally different story, and it could. He has one more year, and personally, I think they should give him the number one job next year, and see how he does. And if he truly wins it, then sign him, give him another extension.
I think that's when the faucets will truly get turned on for this team in terms of contending and competing, is when they figure out that goaltending position. I think they're going to be very careful with it. Eventually, someone's going to establish themselves as the long-term starter, or they'll get a tandem with a guy that edges out the starting position. But when that happens, is going to be when we turn that corner. Is when the goaltending situation gets figured out, and it's an important one. It's it's not an easy place to play whatsoever, and I think that's what Montembeau has going for him, because he went through that horrible season last year, and despite being lit up every night, he handled it like a pro. And then he comes into this season and he's putting up much better numbers, despite having a who's who a defenseman, but all of them young in front of him. So yeah, he's impressive. I'd like to see him stick around. He's working his ass off for his hometown team.
Yeah, and he's 14th, I think, in the league, and goals saved above expected. So for all the analytic,
a bunch of elite goalies,
for all the analytic people out there, that's what everyone seems to be looking at to determine how good a goalie is. So if you're playing on the 27th place team and you're the 14th best goalie in the league, that says something. So
I think they're honestly riding him right now to see if he can handle being a starter. So the 4 games in a row, it's kind of let's see if he can handle the load of being a starter.
Well, and he has a 500 record. He's 14-14-3 or something like that. So, well, not quite 500, but you know what I mean. So yeah, he has an over 9 save percentage. I mean, goals against average isn't great, but still better than Allen's. And yeah, and maybe next year, if Montembeau does play that well, maybe you have a market out there to move Allen and get something back. Who the backup would be, I have no idea, but because I think Primo's days are done, but we'll see.
Yeah,
no idea. But moving on from that, Matt, you read the article with the Hughes interview today. What's your take on that?
I think he speaks very eloquently. I think he's got a plan in place. I mean, that's evident as in terms of what he highlights. And I just like how he brings up the state of the division, because that is crucial. The Atlantic does have it's top heavy. There's some very, very good teams in this division, especially in terms of regular season success. Boston and Toronto and Tampa, of course, being the dynasty that they've been, but along with Toronto and Boston as incredibly strong regular season teams every single year. It's a hard division to crack into that top 3. So that does, play into it. You want to get as good as them as they are now. You want to get as good as them to compete with them and beat them out for that spot. But, also the reality of it is that a couple of them are, they're at the tail end of their windows, including Toronto in some sense. They're going to have to really retool this team a little bit in the next couple of years, especially if they get bounced early. Boston's core is quite old, so they are going to drop off a bit, and that'll I agree. I think that'll lighten the load for the Buffaloes and the Detroits that are also on their way up, like the Habs are. It's going to be, you're going to see that switch happen at some point in the next couple of years. It's going to be the Detroit, Habs, Buffalo near the top. And And that's how it'll be. I think it's wise, and they're not going to buy for a while. I think that's the main thing I took from it, is that they've got a plan and they're going to stick to it. And let's say they compete for a wild card spot next season, and let's say they sneak into a playoff spot. Is Kent Hughes going to buy at the deadline? No, he might even still ship Joel Edmondson out, or maybe he just keeps him as an own rental. You know what I mean? But they're not going to go all in next year, even if they make it. I think that is what I take from that, because they're going to compete, like we already talked about. That's a non-negotiable. That I'm sure it is. So no, I like it, and I don't read into it that it's pro tank whatsoever. I don't see that mentality. It could also be setting the expectations a little low for the fan base to knock them out of the park next year, the year after. So we'll see. This team's on good footing. If they stay healthy, if they can have a healthy season for the first time in 5 fucking years, then they will be fine.
Now, Morad asks a very good question here on the YouTube channel, and it kind of ties into the rebuild and the goaltending that we were bringing up earlier. And he's asking if we would take a chance on Carter Hart. I'm going to send that question to you, Matt. Would you do that?
I mean, it depends on what the cost is, right? I mean, I don't think it'd be much. I mean, I shouldn't say that. He was touted as the next Carey Price at one point, potentially Canada's next starter. So, but the thing is with goalies, the value, you don't see a lot of value going back in deals for goaltenders a lot. So it's not like we'd be trading for a first line center and whatever. And I don't have his stats up right now. They're not, I think he had like a 917 or 915 in his first couple seasons. He's dropped off a little bit since. He's got a shitty team in front of him. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't try it out, depending on what the cost is. And it, could be a match made in heaven. The next Carey Price ends up the next Carey Price on the Habs, but yeah, it's a interesting idea. And I just kind of find it strange that Philly's even shopping him in the first place. A guy, I think he's around 23, 24-year-old range. Even if they're going to go through a rebuild, goalies primes are usually, goalies, they've got time. I don't know. It doesn't seem wise for them to trade him. So that would lead me to believe that it would be wise to acquire him and give him a chance, especially while we're in a stage right now where we need a goalie and we're not necessarily contending. So fuck it, give it a shot.
Well, the last couple of years, Philly's been kind of shitty, and he's put up a 905 and a 907 save percentage, and that's not bad, especially for a goalie making less than $4 million. Now, that's about what Montembeault is doing now for $1 million.
Carter Hart's the most overrated goalie in the NHL.
I love it.
I didn't want to come out and say it.
I've been saying it for years, but I've never been a Carter Hart fan. I think Montreal's wasting their time to go out and get him. And you make a perfect point, Blaine. Montembeault's putting up the same save percentage as Carter Hart, and he's making $3 million less. So why go out and get him?
Well, if you're talking about putting up a tandem like Matt was talking about, when the team's starting to get ready, Hart is only 24, Montembeault's 26. I mean, as a tandem, on a decent team, those two would probably be good enough.
That could spark, that could be a nice little, goalie competition going on. Not controversy, but competition. They could, keep each other, motivated to take the spot.
Well, it's Montreal.
We'll have
it'd end up being a goalie knife fight.
Hallmark. Yeah.
I don't know. Suzuki ruined Carter Hart when he patted him on the head, so I think it's over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's done.
That'd be hard to forget.
He actually took a giant dive there.
He did. Like, ever since he patted him on that head, Carter went to the point now. The team that has him, the team that thought he was going to be their big goalie savior, because Philadelphia, let's be honest, hasn't had a good goalie since Ron Hextall. Is going to he was going to be the next big thing, and he's not. They thought he was going to be Carey Price, and he ended up being Mike Condor. Dustin
goalies are weird though. Like look at Montembeault last year, this year. You never know, right? That's why you need your goalie scouts. They're just you guys figure it out.
The biggest thing with Montembeault is you knew Montembeault was going to have a bad game just by his body language after a bad goal. But I find this year, even after a bad goal or after a goal, it's different. He's still, like last year, he would let a goal in. You could just tell by his body language, like you're like, he's going to let another one in any minute now. And sure enough, next shot or a couple shots later, he lets another goal in, and then another goal in. And I find this year he's not like that. He'll let a goal in and he shakes it off and he gets back out there and then forgets all about it. I mean, like tonight's first goal, I didn't even know how that goal went in until I saw the highlights, but it was just a well-placed shot. That's all. And there's nothing you can really do about that. And he shook it off. And
the second goal sure as hell wasn't his fault either.
Well, that was pretty goddamn empty. I mean,
why wasn't he there?
Why wasn't he there? I mean, the puck hit someone in front and just went right to the open guy, and Montembeault was in position for where the puck was supposed to go. And
he should have known better.
He should have known. Didn't even stretch out to try to get it. Oh, I was so pissed. Druin would have had that.
Michael Ryder would have had that.
I'm still waiting for Chris Tierney to score an empty net goal.
Oh man.
That's cold. That is just cold.
What? He's wearing 67. He has to score an empty net goal.
Yeah.
Even if it was his first ever empty net goal, it's going to be ruined. Ruined.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I'll say this: if I was in the NHL, I'd score every empty net goal I could. A goal's a goal. I don't give a shit if a goalie's in there.
Yeah.
The only guy I know, Brett Hall, had one empty net goal in his entire career. He refused to score them because he didn't want to taint his goal numbers. Think about that. The man has what? 600 goals, 500 and some odd goals, one empty netter.
I mean, it's impressive. It's very impressive. Yeah. Doesn't sound much of a team player, but I mean,
that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying if I'm on a breakaway, there's an empty net, I'm not going to go, no, someone come take this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be top shelf in that thing.
Yeah.
Patrick Stefan, eat your heart out. Oh man. Yeah. So fun. All right. So talked about the draft and talked about LeBron's interview, goaltending, the return of the players, but now there's another one that I want to bring up, and that's Gurianov. Do you, Matt, believe he's done enough or is on pace to earn either a qualifying offer or a new contract?
I don't know, man. I think he's going to have to work something out with Hughes because that qualifying offer is pretty high for a guy that, or for a team, I should say, that's, trying to clear cap space. I don't know why you have any sort of loyalty towards, this guy at this point. I mean, it's still been only a handful of games. I'd still, leave that for the off season and continue to, analyze his effort and play away from the puck. Yeah, no rush. I'm not sold on the guy, but he makes some nice crisp passes. He's scoring goals here and there. He's putting up points. So you gotta, respect that. It's nice to see that happen for a guy that's, brand new to a team, that quickly. He meshed pretty well, like right off the bat. So, was good in the playoffs for Dallas a couple years ago. That's usually a good sign, value that much higher than any sort of regular season statistics. So, but we'll see. He's an RFA. It's nice to at least, keep that trade tree going a little bit.
What about you, Treg?
Well, he got 7 points in 12 games. You can't really with the Canadians. He's a good skater. He has size. I agree with Matt. The qualifying offers what kind of
Yeah.
You know, yeah, he is a former 20 goal scorer and maybe come back to that, but I think I would like to sign him, but I don't know if I want to throw 4 or 5 million at him. And I think his qualifying offer is what, 3.9 or something like that?
2.9.
2.9. I mean, I wouldn't go much
Still too
higher
much.
than that. I wouldn't go much
Yeah.
higher than that. 2.5, maybe what I'd go. Maybe.
You don't have to give him that. You know, they don't even have to qualify him. They could just sit there and say, look, we're not going to qualify you at this. He can become a free agent, just like they did with Rem Pitlick. They can sign him for a 2-year deal for much less.
Or
Yeah,
he
but
can go
Rem-
somewhere else.
Yeah, but Rem Pitlick never scored 20 goals either. I'll play the. I mean, the guy's only 25. Like I said, since coming to Montreal, 7 points in 12 games. That's pretty good. 5 goals. He has a hell of a shot. You know, he passes well. He's a good skater. He has size. Again, it depends on if they draft someone, who they draft. Do they make an offer for Dubois in the offseason? You know, is Anderson part of that offer for Dubois in the offseason? So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that are going to play in depending on what they do in the future. I mean, if you get a guy like Dubois, guaranteed someone like Anderson, or I guess the rumor going around now, Logan Mailloux is going to be involved, would be involved. Probably another first round pick somewhere is going to be involved. So if you lose that power
Just
forward in
fucking
Anderson,
wait.
I don't know if Dubois really wants to come to Montreal. He's never really came out and said, I want to be in Montreal. His agent
All his
said,
bluff.
Montreal's a place that, you know, we'd like to be.
All his bluff.
Again, it depends. If you win the lottery and draft Bedard, you're not going out and getting Dubois.
No.
Because now you have Bedard, Suzuki, and Doc as centers. Right? But I think
take.
Bedard,
I don't see Bedard as a center in the NHL.
I don't either. I see him. I think he's too small. I think he moves to the wing. But anyway, I'm just saying, or if you get Fantelli, so you get or Leo Carlson, you know, they're all centers. So depends on who you get.
Carlson is a winger as well.
Yeah. I mean, I can see, Fantelli played wing the entire World Juniors. So
he's a center.
Yeah. So again, like everyone's saying, oh, we should do this and we should do that. But, you know, if you do this, it changes this. So really, it all depends on what Hughes is prioritizing right now. Is he prioritizing the draft? And then that will determine who he brings back and who he doesn't. I would like to bring Gurianov back, but not at $3 million.
Yeah,
No,
I'd like him to
I don't think
prioritize
so either.
having some minutes for guys like RHP, you know, because when we get Caulfield back and Dvorak back, you know, and depending on, you know, if we make a signing or, you know, there needs to be ice time for guys like that are right on the edge of graduating to be full-time NHLers. And I'm not sure if I want to commit to Gurianov and take that spot away from a guy who's 22 or, you know, who's not gotten his chance yet to stay. You know, it's great that Guryanov's good in the playoffs, but are we going to be in playoffs next year? Do we need a player? Do we need a depth 20 goal scorer, you know, that we're hoping rebounds? Let's just go with our in-house talent that we're developing. Let's give them, you know, some minutes here.
Well, just to bring this up, there's only a year difference between RHP and Gurianov. Gurianov's 25, RHP's 24. But yeah, like Yolonen's another guy. He's going to be looking for ice time. I mean, mind you, you're losing Drouin. He's not coming back. Byron's not coming back, so he's not going to be taking up a spot. Monahan's not coming back. I don't know who else is on the forward. Is there anyone else on
Dvorak, but they could potentially move him. But he, you know, there's him there, and
but he's still signed Dvorak. But Caulfield will be back. Dvorak will be back. But I mean, I'm not super hyped on RHP myself. Like he had that hot start. I think it was a matter of he just was in the right line at the right time and the right energy. I'm indifferent between Gurianov and RHP. Honestly, like RHP will cheaper. So yeah, keep him over Gurianov if that's the case. I think Gurianov has more potential than RHP has. I also think Ylonen has more potential than RHP have. I'd like to see Ylonen make the team.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so this is what you have to look at. Like, who's if you want to rebuild and you want these young guys coming in, then you can't really go out and start bringing guys in from elsewhere, because then you're taking spots away from people that are already in your system.
There's going to be several openings next year. I mean, you're looking at, so Caulfield is going to be back. Slavkovsky is going to be back. Evans is going to be back.
Evans,
and
there's a few, right?
And you're going to probably lose, definitely Drouin is gone. Belzil won't be there. Tierney won't be there. Pitlick probably not. Not Anderson, but Hoffman. There's a possibility he's traded off for spare parts. So there's going to be 4, maybe 5 roster spots. Yeah, sure. Keep some spots open for the young guys like Beck coming up, or RHP and Ylonen. But there is a spot that Gurianov could fill if he signs for much less. And I do believe that he has earned that chance to sign a 1 or 2 year deal at like $1.5 million, but definitely not 2.9.
Yeah.
I could see them working that out, like Hughes working that out, avoiding the qualifying offer that he might not have earned the last year or two, and working something out where he's comfortable and has minutes and a good role.
Yeah, and I think it's only going to be a 1 or 2 year deal, because you have guys like Farrell and Waugh and Kidney. I believe they're all going to be in Laval next year, but they're going to be looking.
Richard.
What? Richard?
Messer.
Oh, Messer. Yeah. So I think they're all going to be in Laval next year. So there's 4 guys there that in another couple years are going to be looking to push into the roster spots if they work out. Like, let's not sit there and say not every one of our prospects are going to work out. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. Apparently my daughter, some of
them for Bedard in a couple of years.
Apparently my daughter is dating Joshua Waugh, according to her. So like they're lovers. I don't think Joshua Waugh is aware of this, but according to my daughter, they met at the airport and she, wanted to add him to Snap, and so she declared him her boyfriend.
There you go.
So Joshua, if you're listening,
I've got highest hopes for him and Farrell. Yeah. Yeah. Him and Farrell, I'm most looking forward to, and or at least I see the most potential in, specifically Farrell, but Roy for different reasons. I don't know. Those are 2 very good picks in the draft.
Well, we could see Farrell this year if Harvard gets put out and they sign him. So
yeah,
there's a possibility we see him this year. But yeah, I think the biggest thing where you have to look at is the defense, because I'm telling you, 2 of those lefties got to go. They better not trade. They better not trade my
Matheson.
guy. I think Matheson stays. I think he's there for the long haul. Edmondson will be gone regardless.
Yeah, I think he does too.
So Matheson stays, Gooley stays. They're guaranteed to stay.
Yeah.
But then you have Struble, Harris, Jack-Eye, Kovacevic, who's right, that plays left. But I mean, Harris can play right. But yeah, something got to give there. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I could see Harris being that guy who, eventually gets frustrated not being able to crack the top 4 because he's got these huge hulking guys ahead of him who can move, right? So I could see Harris being that guy who will have value down the line, right? He's still young. He'll be under he'll still have RFA status. So, it's a good situation to be in.
I think Barron's played well enough to start with the team next year. If he works out his early season mental issues. Because I think that's what his thing is. I think he just takes a while to get his head into the game. I don't know. What do you think, Coach? You're muted. You're muted.
If I ever talk to a coach who's coached him at any point in the last few years, I'll let you know.
But
you know what they say: those who can do, those who can't coach.
That's why Wayne Gretzky was a terrible coach. Why can't you guys do this? It's so easy. But like even on the right side, like I truly believe Logan Mailloux will be in Laval next year and have a chance to come up on the team. According to what's his face there, not Rob Ramage, but I flew with his girlfriend there to Dallas.
Frankie Bouillon.
Frankie Bouillon. Well, I didn't fly with her. She just happened to be in the seat next to me. Anyway, he thinks Logan Mailloux's ready for the NHL now. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but so
also have Lane Hudson as a lefty too. That's brutal.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
Bad position or a good position to be in, but that's a lot of lefties that you got to find. But think it's severe potential too.
But think of the potential of what they can get back if they have to get rid of a couple of those guys.
Yeah.
Like, if Lane Hudson turns out to be what everyone hoping he's going to be, and again, I'm going to temper my expectations on Lane Hudson.
How dare you?
I'm just saying, but if he turns out to be anywhere close to an Adam Fox or a Cale Makar, that's a win, right? That's a huge win. So, I mean, you have Matheson,
okay, I guess.
You have Hudson, but you have Gooley. So where are all these left? Gooley's not a third pairing defenseman. Hudson won't be a third pairing defenseman. Matheson's not a huge third pairing defenseman.
By the time Matheson is expiring, maybe that's when Hudson slowly.
Well, I mean, Hudson's only in his first year of college, so
yeah,
there's no rush on Hudson. So you're
right.
It's
endless. The talent and prospects this team already has, and they're going to compile more. Like at this point, it's just a waiting game, and I think 2 to 3 years is fair because then you got to think you've got a 27-year-old Suzuki and a 24 or 5-year-old Gooley and 24-year-old Caulfield. So it's like that's exactly when you want to start, being a regular playoff force anyway. So yeah, it's a fucking wicked position to be in. It's just suffering through this is the
but this is Montreal's had to do that for the last 20 years. Montreal's had to do this. Mark Bergevin should have did this in 2013 when he first took over. He should have said, all right, Jeff. And I think this is just my opinion. This is my whatever. I think Bergevin kind of wanted to do that. And I think Jeff Molson said, no, we're the Montreal Canadiens. Plus the 100 anniversary was coming up and they didn't want to go into the 100th anniversary.
That was before.
Oh, that was before. Yeah. So there's been a thing in Montreal where we have to be a playoff team. We have to be a playoff team. And I think that's what killed them for the past 20 years. No one came in and said, well, I know we got to be a playoff team, but in order to be a contending team, we got to scrape the bottom of the barrel for a couple years and build the proper way. And now they're starting to do that. And they're doing it in a time where you can do it quickly. Because back then it would take 5 to 10 years, where now you can do it in 2 to 5 years. So see what happens.
I mean, it also helps that Bergevin had lined up Suzuki and Caulfield and Gooley for Hughes, right? So it's like they're already like Hughes started 2 or 3 years into it. So they're in a good spot. They go from having, Bergevin had his detractors and his issue and his issue. One thing that I disliked about the Bergevin era, which he corrected at the end, was that they never had like a guy like Anderson to make space for talented players. Now they have Anderson, and it's looking like they'll have him for a bit longer. But even if it's not Anderson 2 or 3 years from now, they'll still need a player like him to make space for the rest of the guys. So it's good to have him now so they can play that way.
But I think they will have like Slavkovsky, Doc. They're going to be big players that are going to create space. So
yeah.
that's why I think Anderson could be a guy on the move, but I mean, there's no rush. Why rush to get
Easier
rid
to
of
move
Anderson?
than Gallagher.
Well, yeah, because his contract's still worth what he does, and that's the only reason why. But Anderson, by the time he hits 30, is his contract going to be any good anymore? Who knows? Who knows?
Well, that's the question that we're going to have to answer in the summer, but not tonight. We've reached the end of our time, but before we leave, we usually have a final thought. Treg, you've been rambling on too long. I talk too much. So, Matt, final thoughts to you.
Go Habs, go, baby. I got nothing. Let's get a
That's
W.
more than nothing.
Get another W next game.
Piss off all the tankers, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm in. What's a third win in the month, really, in the grand scheme of things? It's not going to hurt anything. So,
if you look at the standings now, the worst they'll finish is probably 6th.
Yeah.
But if they win the next game, it's against the Bruins.
They'll still be 5th.
Exactly. But they beat the Bruins. So let's go. Let's get this in. Triple W. Woo.
No, thanks for inviting me on, Blaine. I really appreciate it. It was the first time I've got to chat Habs in the old, social atmosphere, social media atmosphere in a long time. So thanks for the invite. It's been an absolute treat, and it's good to see Treg again, looking swole still.
Thank you.
And congrats on the medals, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so thanks again. Thursday evening, right?
That's right. So you're our guest host this week. You're replacing the other Matt, the younger one with the bad beard. But we went with a star this time. We need someone to drag us along.
No. I'm dragging myself along, trying to raise 3 small kids. I'm not sure I can drag you guys too.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. You don't need 2 more kids.
We act like 3 kids.
Yeah. How was Montreal, by the way? I really wanted to go. I was like so close to being like, fuck it, jumping in the car, driving out for the draft.
The parts I remember were okay.
Right.
Slakowski laughed at me when I had my right t-shirt on. I had a t-shirt that said "Make the right choice," and he walked by us and he pointed at it and laughed. I thought that was cute.
I remember him pointing down, going, "Ha ha ha, little man."
Yeah. I think I was up to his nipples or something.
If that. So I want to thank everyone who's tuned in, all 4 or 5 of you that watched us at some point. To everyone who's listening at home, now that this is we record this live, so all the mistakes are still in. I'm not editing any of that crap out because that's a lot of work, and I work for the government and I don't do that shit. So thank you to everyone who's listening. Keep sending those emails in. Keep sending in those requests. We're still going to try to meet those, such as bringing on big name superstars like Matt Bedard, the Scotian Canadian. And just want to keep saying, if you're talking about it, so are we.